Let me just start this video by saying that nostalgia is a really strong drug, isn't it? So is fanboyism.
I know.
In case you don't know, I've been doing some videos on OS gaming performance lately. I started with Windows vs Linux on an older GPU like the RX 6800, then went to retest Windows vs Linux on more recent AMD and NVIDIA GPUs, and some days ago I tested Windows 11 versus a debloated version of Windows 11 called Nano 11. And if you didn't see the results, you should, because they're interesting. And after doing those videos, people were constantly nagging me about how I needed to test Windows 10 because Windows 11 was crap and Windows 10 was much faster. So today I am testing Windows 10 22.2 versus Windows 11 24.2, the latest version of each operating system. And by the way, both systems were clean installed and they are running at complete stock without any kind of optimizations. Not that they would make any difference. What does make the difference is to the sponsor. And you ask, why? Because it's GVG Mall, bringing you lots of software deals like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2019 or 2021 with a new Windows 11 design, and for all of these you can use my SKG discount code for 30% off, getting a Windows 11 serial key for $22 and a Windows 10 one for only $15. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. Now, we're going to test AMD and NVIDIA GPUs and even a CPU bottlenecked scenario to see how both Windows 10 and Windows 11 perform in these different types of situations. And you can even look at my cat before the benchmarks. Starting with Assetto Corsa, we have Windows 10 delivering slightly better results at 1080p, also with higher 1% lows, but besides 1080p, both systems deliver the exact same performance, even in a DX11 title like this one. Counter-Strike 2 uses Source 2 engine but still relies on the X11 instead of the X12, and here we see Windows 10 delivering constantly a bit more performance. Not much of course, but definitely constant, which shows Valve's engine still works better with a good old Windows 10. Plague Tale Requiem on the other hand performs much better with Windows 11, and of course the averages are the same, but the 1% lows with Windows 11 are 25% higher at 1080p, 28% higher at 1440p and 12% higher at 4K. And I could definitely feel the gameplay difference and that the gameplay was way smoother when running Windows 11. Game changer here for sure. As for Cyberpunk 2077, it is the first game where we see Windows 10 getting a bigger advantage, but only at 1080p, in this case by 5%. But as soon as we move to 1440p the tables turn and Windows 11 is now 4% faster. When enabling ray tracing, Windows 10 is still faster at 1080p, but when going to 1440p, Windows 11 still delivers a smoother gameplay, because of course we have higher 1% lows, being things at 4K virtually on par. As for the first Berserker Khazan, results were basically equal across the board with both systems, with Windows 10 getting slightly better averages at 1440p, but 36% higher 1% lows. This might be happening due to some occasional stutter too, since we're talking about Unreal Engine 4. As for Unreal Engine 5 with Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, the results are all within the margin of error, showing that both systems can run this game equally well, which is the minimum that we can ask from a newer operating system like Windows 11. And Fortnite also uses Unreal Engine 5, but now the difference is big. Actually, this is the first game where we see a real difference, but unlike many would think, it is Windows 11 that is faster, being 10% faster at 1080p, 7% faster at 1440p, and 3% faster at 4K, also delivering much higher 1% lows at 1440p that will also lead to a much smoother gameplay. And remember, these games were tested in the same exact way. As for PUBG, it is again more of the same, with Windows 10 and Windows 11 delivering basically the same performance, with Windows 10 at 1080p delivering slightly higher 1% lows, but Windows 11 at 1440p delivering better averages. And the same happens for 4K as well, so it's kind of a trade. As for Call of Duty Black Ops 6, it also follows the trail of the previous games, where it just performs better on Windows 11 at both 1080p and 1440p. Of course, the difference won't be really noticeable in real gameplay, let's call it that, but this just proves once again that at least in these games and with a decent build, no, Windows 10 is not faster than Windows 11. At least, not anymore. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is also running Unreal Engine 5, and again we see Windows 11 taking the lead, being faster at 1080p and 1440p in terms of averages, but being constantly faster than Windows 10 in terms of 1% lows, delivering a smoother gameplay as well. So yes, it is another win for Windows 11. As for God of War Ragnarök, we have Sony's in-house game engine that seems to also perform better with Windows 11. In this case, 5% faster at 1080p, 6% faster at 1440p, and 3% faster at 4K, which is far from bad, especially considering everyone seems to think Windows 10 is somehow faster. But Silent Hill 2 seems to be here to shut down Windows 11 win streak, being now at least on par with it, but delivering quite better 1% lows at 1080p. Sadly, this game is kind of a mess in terms of optimization, and traversal stutters are a thing that you can just get rid of, sadly. But yeah, Windows 10 is still better here. Moving to Spider-Man 2, things do look quite good for Windows 10, that is now not slower than Windows 11. In a matter of fact, it is a bit faster at 1080p, but since this is kind of a gameplay benchmark, I guess we can consider this close to the margin of error. But well, a win is a win. And now we have the Oblivion remake, and if there's one thing that I like about Bethesda games, is that somehow, even when using a different game engine like this remake using Unreal Engine 5, they make their games extremely stable when it comes to benchmarking. I mean, they can run like shit, but they run like shit consistently, which is great for benchmarking. As for The Last of Us Part 2, we have another case where Windows 11 just completely outperforms Windows 10. In this case by 5% at 1080p, 7% at 1440p, and 11% at 4K. It seems that Sony's game engine do use Windows 11 correctly and can indeed extract more performance out of it, or maybe they just don't do well with Windows 10, I'm even stuttering. But well, who knows. And another Bethesda game, and another consistent benchmark, where both systems deliver exactly the same results, well, within the margin of error. This means that if you're playing Starfield or Oblivion Remake, you don't really need to care about having Windows 10 or Windows 11, it just makes no difference. And after 17 benchmarks at 3 resolutions, we can see that Windows 10 not only isn't faster than Windows 11, as most say, as it is also generally slower. The performance difference is small, of course, up to 1% faster, which is kind of a margin of error, but some games do deliver better performance on Windows 11, like Fortnite, God of War, The Last of Us Part 2, and in those games, Windows 11 does deliver a considerably better experience. Now, as you saw, not only Windows 10 is not faster, as you saw, not only Windows 11 is not faster in a general matter, as in a matter of fact, it is slower than Windows 11. And I know there's people thinking, well, but he's not using an NVIDIA GPU. And also people thinking, well, but he's using a quite powerful CPU. Or even people thinking, damn, I shouldn't have eaten that burrito. And that's exactly why I'm testing now the RTX 4070 Ti Super and pairing it with the Ryzen 5 5600 in order to have an NVIDIA GPU and at the same time provoke a CPU bottleneck, or in this case, a massive CPU bottleneck in some scenarios. And on top of that, I'm adding 1440p ultra-wide instead of 4K for the ultra-wide users. I can't really help with a burrito though. Starting with Assetto Corsa once more, but now as stated before with a much lower end system, with a Ryzen 5 5600X and a 4070 Ti Super, in order to use an NVIDIA GPU and to provoke a CPU bottleneck. We have around the same FPS at all resolutions, and this means that the little 5600X wasn't able to push more FPS. I mean, this is what a bottleneck looks like. You change the graphical settings and resolution, and yet the FPS stay around the same. As for Counter-Strike 2 in this lower-end build, well, it delivers slightly better results with Windows 10 as well, which was expected, I guess. What I believe you didn't expect was 1440p ultra-wide delivering slightly better results at 1080p. And again, these funny things can happen when you are severely CPU bottlenecked. As for A.T.A.L.K.E.R Requiem, it was already delivering quite low 1% lows on Windows 10 with the RX 9070 and 7800X 3D, but with this combo it was unplayable. The game on Windows 10 would be constantly stuttering hard in these same spots, kind of traversal stutters but only on Windows 10, and Windows 11 was not only faster on average, as it delivered a very decent smooth gameplay, with a huge difference in this case scenario. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden also had around the same results with a big CPU bottleneck, so I believe we have nothing more to see here besides the slightly higher results at 1440p for Windows 11. As for Fortnite, we have it again performing better on Windows 11. It seems that independently of the builder or the CPU bottleneck, Windows 11 just runs this game better, with Windows 11 delivering slightly lower averages at 1080p, but higher 1% lows, while also of course delivering better results across the board at 1440p and 1440p ultra-wide, being up to 7% faster. And even though PUBG had the same results with the previous build, it now delivers some odd results, with Windows 11 delivering much higher averages at 1080p, somehow I don't really know why, but with Windows 10 getting almost equal at 1440p and actually delivering better performance at 1440p ultra-wide, in the averages and 1% lows. In the previous build tested, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 had better 1% lows with Windows 11, and in this situation of using an NVIDIA GPU, NVIDIA CPUs are still to come, and with a CPU bottleneck, Windows 11 not also delivers higher 1% lows, but also higher averages. But maybe this game uses some features or resources that aren't really presented in Windows 10. Who knows? And Silent Hill 2 had higher 1% lows at 1080p with Windows 10 with the previous build, and it still does it with the current one. This way we can see that these differences are really related to the operating system, because even on an entirely different build, Windows 10 still delivered better 1% lows in this game at 1080p. As for Spider-Man 2, we can see a very small difference of around 1 FPS in between Windows 10 and Windows 11, which is of course considered margin of error, but since it is constant across the board, it shows that somehow Windows 10 is slightly faster in this title. But well, a win is a win. As for Oblivion Remake, while the results were the exact same with the previous build, on this one Windows 11 takes the lead, being from 1 to 2 FPS faster, which is again a difference that nobody would notice in the real world, but it also shows that Windows 11, even in CPU bottlenecked scenarios, can still be faster than Windows 10, even though everyone says that Windows 10 is better in CPU bound scenarios. And to finalize, we have The Last of Us Part 2, and it seems that with this game engine, while we were CPU bottlenecked at 1080p, Windows 10 seems to have worked a bit better. But as soon as we raise the resolution to 1440p or 1440p ultra-wide and the load shifts more to the GPU side, Windows 11 just comes out as the winner, again. These are the types of results that are interesting to see, at least to me of course. Finalize, we have the 11 games averages, where one more time, no, Windows 10 is not faster. In a matter of fact, it was overall slower than Windows 11. Not that it makes a big difference in most cases of course, but Windows 11 is definitely faster in others, like Fortnite, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, The Last of Us, and some more. So let's just jump to the final thoughts. And well people, as you saw, I'm pretty sure that you weren't expecting these numbers. You've seen lots and lots of videos online testing Windows 10 versus Windows 11, and in some case scenarios, or I should say in most case scenarios, Windows 10 is faster. And I saw some videos from Hardware Unboxed, and I did some videos before, and in the videos that I made before, Windows 10 versus Windows 11, the performance was basically the same. There was like one or two scenarios where Windows 10 was indeed a bit faster, but there were others as well where Windows 11 was the fastest operating system. When we're looking though at videos like those from Hardware Unboxed, those are kind of old videos usually testing Windows 11 23.2, because the 24.2 did bring some issues here and there, but generally it is a much better system, or a much better version of the system compared to 23.2 that was highly inconsistent, especially when we're talking about CPU performance, thing that was mostly fixed with the 24.2. And of course there are newer games running on newer engines, and I believe that Windows 11 is just getting better and better as time passes by, because of course people are developing for Windows 11 and not for Windows 10. And just because some of you guys love to talk about the UI on Windows 11 and so on, there are some things that I do like about Windows 10, over Windows 11, but saying that Windows 11 UI is just worse, I mean, that's not facts, that's just preference, because if you're looking at the whole picture, Windows 11 is just much better. Look for example at Windows 10 22.2. For example, one of the things that annoys me the most is the fact that when you select the black theme, there are some applications or some parts of the Windows itself, the UI itself, that will still be white. Look for example at the Task Manager. You can select the black theme, the Task Manager will still be white. Going for applications like, let's say, the Notepad will still be on the older version. I tried to update to the newer version. No, it doesn't work, you need Windows 11. And there are several other things UI-wise where Windows 11 is just much better. For example, if you look at the settings menu, the settings menu is just way easier to use. You just have the main ones on the left, then you have several ones inside. It is just easier and way better to use. There are things that I don't really like. For example, the context menus are sometimes better on Windows 10, but generally Windows 11 just has a way cleaner UI, and at the same time it is just way more consistent. That's the word that I should be using, consistent. The UI is just way more consistent, while Windows 10 still feels like a mix in between Windows 8 and Windows 7 or something like that, which just doesn't make much sense if you ask me. So in those scenarios, in terms of themes, UI and so on, Windows 11 is just much more consistent. But I actually had some things that I noted here in order to not forget. One of the things was that when I installed Windows 10 on my motherboard, I didn't even have chipset drivers for the Wi-Fi. So I needed to go to another computer, I needed to download the drivers, the chipset drivers, or the drivers for the Wi-Fi, in this case the motherboard drivers, then install the motherboard drivers, and even when I installed those motherboard drivers for that Wi-Fi, the connection just wouldn't work at 100% in Windows 10. Instead of downloading, for example, at let's say 80 megabytes per second, 90 megabytes per second, it was only downloading at 50 or 60, while with Windows 11 it downloads at, let's say, 100 or 110. And yes, I don't even need drivers. I just install Windows 11 and the drivers are there, Wi-Fi works out of the box. For example, if I wanted to change the resolution mid-game, sometimes MS Afterburner wouldn't record the FPS that I wanted to record, so I needed to close MS Afterburner and reopen it. And also, since I change a lot the resolution when testing games, for example, for this video, I test at 1080p, 1440p, 4K, 1440p ultra-wide and so on. Since I do that, I noticed that Windows 10 has a bit more issues when changing the resolution. For example, when changing, let's say, from 1440p to 4K, in some scenarios, or going to 4K from 4K to 1440p, in some scenarios, the game responsiveness just wouldn't work correctly, because at 4K I use 150% scale, while at 1440p the scale is 100%. So in those scenarios, for example, I was messing around with the mouse inside the game, and it wasn't in the correct position. For example, I needed, if I had the play button like right here, I would need to have the mouse right here, and that was because of the scale options. I needed to go into windowed mode and then go into full screen mode again in order for it to work, something that again does not happen with Windows 11, at least never happened to me, besides crazy resolution or ratio differences like going from 1440p to 1440p ultra-wide, but in the same ratio, never happened. But yeah, when people tell you that just go Windows 10 because Windows 11 sucks, yeah, you just show them this video. Just show them this video showing that in reality Windows 11 performs the same as Windows 10 in, let's say, 90% of cases, and in the other 10% of cases, yeah, it is kinda give or take. Some games might perform way better, some games might perform slightly worse. I do like the Windows 10 design generally, but I just couldn't stand the white menus, the white context menus, the white task manager. The UI overall just isn't consistent. Something that they made better with Windows 11, and that's a fact. It is more consistent. Now, if you don't really like the UI, that's again a matter of taste. Windows 10 does have better points, but generally Windows 11 is better in terms of UI, and in terms of gaming, as you saw, is also better. So yeah, the Windows 10 is better comments on the internet have just been debunked. That's all for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Leave your comment in the comment section and let me know what you think. If you use Windows 10, if you use Windows 11, if you use Windows 11 23 half 3, half 2, not half 3, lol, half 2, 24 half 2, just let me know if you still use Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11, and of course, very important, if you're having issues with your system, make sure that both your CPU and RAM are stable. I guarantee you that a lot of issues that people have are related to CPU and RAM instabilities, and they don't really even know that they have CPU and RAM instability. So if you're having issues, make sure to run the CPU and RAM at stock and then see if those issues persist. On top of that, if those issues persist, then do a clean installation of Windows. If you are upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11, it is likely that the performance will get worse because you are doing the upgrade of a whole system. Just clean install Windows 11 and you'll be completely fine. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video. Cheers.